Well, good day, everybody. So, we're finally moving past Job. This is day 16. We're going to do Genesis 12 to 15. And I apologize if I sound like I'm in a rush, but we have a lot of ground to cover in a very short period of time this morning. So, strap on your seatbelts, make sure your coffee is full, and let's get going here. So, we know the sorry state of affairs right now. They know very little about God the Creator. They don't know His name. They have some theology in place, but even they themselves admit that they don't know very much. And so now, here we're picking up again with Abram. Um, God the Creator is involved with them. He needs he needs something. He needs to reveal Himself to the world. They are worshiping what they know. There's some form of Him that's morphing into other things right now, and He really needs to reveal Himself. And so he's going to grow a nation. I'll tell you, just skipping ahead a bit here, he's going to grow himself a nation. And through that nation, he is going to reveal himself. He's going to become very personal with them. And he is going to invite them to live according to his righteousness. He wants them to be a nation of priests. So he can glorify himself. He can reveal himself to the whole world, to all of humanity. That's what he's going to do. And he starts it off with a man called Abram. The Lord said to Abram, leave your land, your family, and your father's household for the land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation and will bless you. I will make your name respected and you will be a blessing. So, two things are promised here: a land and people to fill that land. And Abraham knows very little about God the Creator. He knows as much as Job did, maybe a little less than Job. But look what happened here. In verse 4, it says, Abram left just as the Lord told him. Right away, he enters into this thing of trust. There's a reason why the Lord chose Abram for this. We know it wasn't because of his morality, um, but there was, Abram had a heart to believe. He had a heart to trust. So we find again this the same promise is going to be repeated. It's going to be repeated many times, and anything that you find repeated, anything that you find God repeating, especially three times, it's absolutely underlined with exclamation marks. So in verse 7 of chapter 12, the Lord appeared to Abram and said, I give this land to your descendants. So Abram built an altar there to the Lord who appeared to him. So the promise is repeated, and this time Abram, he went into worship. He worshiped him. He built an altar. He made a sacrifice, and he worshiped a God, the Creator, in that place. So then in verse 8, we find him again worshiping. There's going to be this pattern of worship. Abraham has such a relationship with God the Creator that he becomes a great worshiper of him. And so we find in verse 8, from there he traveled toward the mountains east of Bethel and pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Lord and worshiped in the Lord's name. So everywhere that Abram goes, he builds an altar. Why? Because this is the land that his descendants are going to be occupying. So he builds these altars. He's claiming this land, and he's doing so in worship. It's amazing stuff. In verse 13, we find here a little bit of evidence here um, that it's not because of his morality. Okay, he was declared righteous because he trusted, because he believed what God said. But there is we know that Job listed a bunch of things that they knew that the God the Creator considered evil and wicked. Deceit was one of them. Um, Abram is using the excuse of self-preservation. We can always find excuses of why we do things that God would not be pleased with. But here he's telling his wife, who is actually his half sister, to say that he is his sister, or that she is his sister. And so we read, so tell them in verse 13. So tell them, you are my sister, so that they will treat me well for your sake, and I will survive because of you. Okay, so a few things here. Abram doesn't know God the Creator as his protector yet. He doesn't even know him as his provider yet. All he knows is he's received this promise. He believes in that promise, but he doesn't know enough about God the Creator to believe that he's going to rescue him from the Egyptians where he is. That's what's happening here. Or that he's going to provide for him in this place. So he's just trying to survive. That's what it was all about at this time, was survival. So he's just trying to survive. So this is as we go along, we begin to see, I wish we had a lot more time, we begin to see how God the Creator reveals more of himself. It's still base stuff, but he reveals more of himself through the promises he gives, through the actions that he takes. So now the problem here is that Abram was content to leave Sarai in the arms of another man. He was content. It was going well for him. It says things went well for Abram because of her. He acquired flocks, cattle, male donkeys, men servants, women servants, female donkeys, and camels. It went well. He was favored because of this lie, this deception, this thing that he did. Um, but God the Creator wasn't going to leave it that way. There was a pushback here from him because Abram wasn't doing the right thing. God was going to step in and intervene. So we see here that God will intervene for the sake of his purpose, for the sake of his plan. And this was his plan. He had chosen Abram. It was going to be Abram. The promises to Abram and Sarah. Um, Sarai. Sorry, guys. Um, it was to the two of them, and so the heir is going to come from his wife, but this is a problem here. So God does this thing to interrupt and cause problems for Abram now, so they can get back on track. So we read here, then the Lord struck Pharaoh and his household with severe plagues because of Abram's wife Sarai. So pushback. Now, as we go into chapter 13, we'll note here something about Lot. See, Lot did well as long as he was with Abram, but when they separated, it went bad for Lot. It really did. My question, Mike, just throwing out this question. I'm not giving an answer there. I'm just throwing it out to provoke some thinking here. Was that because that there was an overflow of the blessing that the Lord was giving to Abraham, or was it due to Abraham's influence? Was Lot prosperous because of Abraham's influence? Because maybe if he had been with Abraham, Lot would not have settled in Sodom, because Sodom was filled with the rebellious towards God. Lot should have felt uncomfortable in that environment and not settled down in that city. He wasn't supposed to settle down in that city. Abraham did not settle down in a city. He went to Egypt to escape the famine, but he didn't settle down there. He was a nomad. He had taken up a nomad life and was living in tents and stuff. So this is just a question. I wonder if that was because of the overflow of blessing, or whether it was Abraham's influence. Anyway, what we find here in Sodom, the description of Sodom is the citizens of Sodom were very evil and sinful against the Lord. So there was a rebellion here. So we understand from our quick view of Job that from the beginning, we are born with this moral compass. We're born with this understanding of what is right and what is wrong, but it doesn't mean that we necessarily will keep that intact. We can override it if we want. We can lie to ourselves. We can convince ourselves that something that in the beginning that we feel was wrong, man, we can get comfortable with that thing and now consider it right. And this is what had happened with Sodom and Gomorrah, was that these citizens had gotten to a point where they were just willing to override this whole moral compass, and they were quite comfortable with the life that they were living. And Lot should have not have felt comfortable in that place. So we find here in verses 14 to 17, again, it's the third time that this promise is made. From the place where you are standing, look up and gaze to the north, south, east, and west, because all the land that you see I give you and your descendants forever. I will make your descendants like the dust of the earth. If someone could count the bits of dust on the earth, then they could also count your descendants. Now, understand this. This is why our scriptures, the New Covenant scriptures, say that Abraham is the father of our faith. Um, there's been a lot of Jews, but not so much that they can't be counted. But we, we, all of us, those who follow in the same faith of Abraham, this same place of trust, we are considered to be his descendants because he fathered this faith. Nobody else had this faith. Job didn't have this faith. No, nobody else had had this faith up to this point. Abraham is the father of this type of trust in God, the Creator. If you say it, I believe it. We live by every word that comes from his mouth. This is who Abraham is. Okay, so now going on to Genesis 14. There's a big battle here. The kings came against kings. There were alliances, allegiances, and it was bad. Uh, One side lost. Unfortunately, it was the side that Lot belonged to. Lot gets taken away, and all of his possessions. And this is the type of man that Abram is. He takes all the men he has, all 318 of them. Understand, these were combined armies that had come together. Okay, so 318 men. And for the sake of principle, because Lot is his family, Lot is his nephew, he's going after these guys. So with 318, he went after this large army, and he won. And that shows us the kind of favor that was on Abraham. Um, God was demonstrating here that he's his provider and he's his defender. He's his equiper. Because there's no way that Abraham in the natural could take 318 men and go and beat this army. He's not that good. And this is simply because God gave it to him. And we're about to hear from somebody who's making sure that Abraham understands that it was God who provided this. It was God who did this. So let's go see who this is. And we are now introduced to somebody we will hear from later on. This is Melchizedek, the king of Salem. Melchizedek. Don't forget that name. Keep that name, because we are told that Jesus is from the order of Melchizedek. Why? Because Melchizedek was the king priest. He was the king priest. Now Melchizedek, the king of Salem, and the priest of El Elyon had brought bread and wine. Now, I want you to understand about this El Elyon, okay? Because there is some misunderstanding here, okay? There are those who say that El Elyon is a Hebrew name for God, and they refer to El being, but El Elyon isn't Hebrew. El is not Hebrew. This is a term that Abraham adopted. Abraham took on because he's dealing with the nations around him. And the nations around him understood God the Creator as being El Elyon, which that's all it means is God the uplifted one. So God the Creator. It's just another title, another term, God the Creator. Okay. And so we see here, and he blessed him. This is the blessing. So here, Melchizedek, the king priest Melchizedek, is blessing Abraham. Bless Abraham by El Elyon, the creator, God the creator, creator of heaven and earth. Bless El Elyon, who gave you the victory over your enemies. But I want to make sure it's really clear here. Um, okay, here it is. Here we'll come back to the other. Here we see Abraham using this. I promise the Lord, El Elyon. Now, why is he saying that? Because he's speaking to a king of, of, of another people. And they know God the Creator as El Elyon. That's their term for him. That's what he's saying here. I promised the Lord, who you know as El Elyon, creator of heaven and earth, that I wouldn't take even a thread or a sandal strap from anything that was yours, so that you couldn't say, I'm the one who made Abram rich. Now, the reason I'm emphasizing this is not God's name. It's a title, God the Creator. That's all it is. It's not a name. The Hebrew or the Jews in the Hebrew language did have different names for God, but anything that started with El was actually something they adapted to be able to explain who God is to the nations around them. That is not their own language. El is not part of the Hebrew language. So, Abraham borrowed this. His name is not revealed. Abraham does not know his name. We know his name because it came through Moses. I am who I am. Yahweh. That's how that's translated. I am who I am. It's Yahweh. And they won't use it. They take out the vowels, so they can't pronounce it. We've lost the proper pronunciation. We kind of guess at the pronunciation because we want to honor him by using his name correctly. But his name is Yahweh. We also translate it. You'll see it. Lord. We'll use Lord in its place. We'll also Jehovah. So, you guys know Jehovah Jireh. And so we use Jehovah is used as a translation as well, but his name is Yahweh. Now let's just back up a bit here. Where were we? And he blessed, okay, and he gave the victory. He gave you victory over your enemy. So he's explaining that. And then we have Abraham gave Melchizedek 1/10 of everything. He tithed to him. We've had offerings. There's been offerings in the past. There's sacrifices. Abraham has made sacrifices, but this is the first time really that we see this practice of the tithe, the 1/10 of everything. So I just wanted to point that out. Now going to 15, and we're almost done. I'm really rushing through this. We see here the protector. It's a new theology in verse 1. And after these events, the Lord's word came to Abram in a vision. Don't be afraid, Abram. I am your protector. Okay, revelation there. Revelation just came in. I am your protector. Nobody has seen God the Creator as a protector. Yeah, but here he is, the protector. Your reward will be very great. So, okay, that's a new thing that Abraham now understands about him. And again, he comes in and he says this, we're not going to fool around with this. This nation will be birthed through you biologically. And the Lord's word came immediately to him, this man will not be your heir. Your heir will definitely be your very own biological child. He's making that absolutely clear to him. Okay, and again, he just keeps re-emphasizing this to Abraham. Again, he comes in, he promises. I'm just underlining this so you can see how the difference between a Job and an Abram. This is just being hammered away at him. I promise you, I promise you, I promise you. Then he brought Abram outside and said, "Look up at the sky and count the stars. If you think you can count them." He continued, "This is how many children you will have." Again, a reminder. We've already touched on that. We are counted in those numbers because he is the father of our faith. And then you get this beautiful thing here. It's the trust factor. It's what Job didn't have. Job didn't have the trust factor. Abram, sorry, at this moment has the trust factor. Abram trusted the Lord, and the Lord recognized Abram's high moral character. That's how they've translated the whole thing about the righteousness here. Um, so then we have this thing in verse 7. I am the Lord. Now, I just underlined that because Jesus used the I am statements. We know to Moses, he refers to himself as the I am. And in this moment, he's just saying, I am the Lord. He doesn't say, I am El Elyon. He says, I am the Lord. I am the creator. I am who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land as your possession. It's me. I've done this. I've been with you all the time. I'm the one who's been talking to you. And notice that there is this open dialogue that is going on. They are conversing, they are talking, they are having this conversation. And Abraham is getting to know the Creator as nobody else has known him since Adam and Eve, really. And so um, it, God the Creator reveals to Abraham the future. He lets him know, Abraham, and lets him know what's going to happen. He tells him that his descendants are going to be enslaved, and he tells him that he is going to rescue them. It's going to be, he says here, it's going to be the fourth generation. But I want you to look where he says that he's going to take action, and this is really important because we need to underline this as we go through the Bible, so that you will understand, you know, what has to happen before Jesus is returning. Okay, so in the fourth generation will return here, since the Amorites' wrongdoing won't have reached its peak until then. You see, he waits until absolutely there's no more wicked that can happen. He waited till there was no more wicked that could happen on the face of the planet before he flooded it all. He waits until there's no turning back. Everything that people could do, they've done. So I just want you to keep that in mind. So then in verse 17 and 18, um, this is we need to understand these things so we can understand the cross. After the sun had set and darkness had deepened, a smoking vessel with a fiery flame passed between the split open animals. That day the Lord cut a covenant with Abram. To your descendants I give this land. So covenant is sealed by sacrifice. Covenant is sealed by blood. So covenant is sealed by sacrifice. And that's so important for us to understand when we understand the cross. We have entered into a covenant with our King, with our Father. And it was sealed on the cross right there as the blood was spilt. He was the one who provided that sacrifice. So that was a lot. And that was a lot to throw at you, but this is so very important because you need to get this understanding of this relationship because God the Creator has brought Abraham into this incredible relationship now because he is going to birth a nation through him. He is going to bring about a nation where he will glorify himself. He will reveal himself to the nations. That's the whole plan. That's what's going on here because we know through Job that there's not a lot known about him and there's a lot of confusion and he needs to set the record straight. He needs to do that through a nation that he will birth through Abram, but he won't form them as a people until Moses. So yeah, thank you guys. Thank you so much for being patient with me as we get through this. You guys have a fantastic, blessed, wonderful day, and I pray that you're taking some stuff home with you and have a better understanding of what's going on and what we're heading into. And God bless.